Guys, hope you had a nice break and ready to hear a important topic. I think most of you must be familiar with what is data mesh, because this word is already very much popular from ThoughtWorks, right? I think it is the challenge about how do we achieve the data mesh, and then how do we enable a self-service data platform. I think it is not that easy and straightforward. I would say that most of the companies are trying to get there. So anybody knows what is data mesh? Please raise your hand. What is data fabric? Please raise your hand. And what is the difference between data mesh and fabric? Anybody? I think there are a lot of definitions. Maybe let me get to the point. How do I go about explaining this, right? So this is a problem statement. Is basically everybody wants to go from a monolithic data architecture to the target state. How do we give the flexibility for the data scientists and data professionals to access the data so that they can achieve lot of various use cases. So that's the, I think, kind of very important aspect. So let me go through this, zoom into the particular area. So if you notice this, so this is the traditional and modern data architecture. Okay, so traditionally, if you look at this left side, it's a raw data and you must be done some modeling, and then there are data applications developed on top of the data, and then you have a data management which caters for data catalog, data lineage, data security. So this is a traditional architecture, right? I think pretty much every enterprise or every company must be already having a monolithic data platform. Either it's a Hadoop based data platform or whatever technology you use. But logically the architecture is this, right? But if you look at the modern architecture, what is the key difference is how do we have a decentralized data platform so that the data ownership. So if you look at the ownership point of view, the data is not owned by the data platform, correct? Its data is still owned by the business, and the business is like federated and they are having their own agenda, their own objective. So how do we ensure that we provide a kind of a approach that the data domains are still owned by the individual data owner, and they take a full control of how do they ensure that they deliver a value out of the data, right? So I think the whole objective for the data is how do we ensure that we are getting a value out of the data. So if you look at this architecture, the key point is the data domain. The first one is on the data domain. Okay, sorry, I think the laser point is not working. It's okay. So the first one, if you look at, this is a data domain, which is a canonical domain model. For example, irrespective of you have a federated applications, legacy applications or whatever applications, how do you synergize and define a business domain model, right? It's a fully canonical domain model. I think that is the top part. You can have a multiple domain according to your business, domain A, domain B, domain C. I just gave some example. And then you will have a data product. So the data product is something like a well-defined product, and what is the outcome of the product and what the product is going to achieve. So that's a well-defined data product, and anybody can consume the data product, which is developed on top of the canonical domain model. It's a consumable data product, correct? And then the final one is you still have a data management. How do you ensure that you achieve a data catalog, centralized data management, right? Centralized data management and centralized control on the data, right? So if you look at the data products are still owned by the respective product owner, right? So that's how the modern data architecture has to come up. And how do we achieve that, right? So that's the architecture options I'm going to talk about. And the one question which I asked, data fabric and data mesh, there are subtle differences, right? So the data fabric word is coined by Gartner and data mesh word is coined by ThoughtWorks. It's all logical, right? Don't take it as a technology kind of a thing. It's a framework or it's a logical architecture. So what I'm trying to say is we should use best of both worlds, right? Data fabric and data mesh. What does it mean? So data mesh, we make it decentralized, and data fabric, we do a centralized governance. So that's what I'm trying to call it out as a best of both worlds. So standardized only APIs versus standardized platforms and APIs. So you have choices, right? When you go with the modern data architecture, the 4 things you need to check. Only 4 things. One is whether you are going to standardize only APIs or you are going to standardize both platform and the APIs. That means the data mesh has various options. You can have a completely different data platform for an individual business domain, correct? And you can expose a common API and everybody talk through the API. That's one approach. Or you can have a standard platform, centralized platform, but you allow the business to define the canonical domain model themselves and you expose a standard API. So this is another option. Similarly, if you look at it, other 3 things, data aggregation layer for analytics only. So this is another challenge, right? If you look at your enterprise, I'm sure, pretty sure or 100% confident that you have ops reporting, which is called operational reporting, and you have an analytical, which is separate, right? How do you ensure that these two commingle and you achieve through the central data platform? Because reporting requires a real-time kind of output, and analytics requires maybe near real-time. Nowadays analytics also coming into a near real-time. So there are different kind of requirements, but how do you achieve both into a common platform, right? And then the data access layer separated from data management and data access layer integrated with the data management. So this is another option. So the key is when I'm giving access to the data, how do I ensure that it always go via data management controls, the data access control, the data privileges and the security and all those things. That is another important thing. And then the data domains, only canonical domain model, as well as data domains for both canonical domain data and historical data. So how do you ensure that your canonical domain model covers both historical data as well as the current data, right? How do you achieve that? Because some people, they do the canonical domain model only for the current data, right? But your historical data also you need to take into consideration. So those are the options. So if you look at the key building blocks, as I explained, it's a domain oriented decentralized data ownership and data products, everything as a data product, whatever you are coming as an outcome. And then it's a self-serve data platform. That's another key point, that you don't want somebody to control as a central team. You have a self-serve data platform and data management is centralized. That means the federated data mesh, but you have a centralized data management. So you can achieve best of both worlds. So that's the kind of a modern data architecture. I think this is not like a cakewalk or it's a not easy thing, but it requires a lot of maturity for us to slowly come out. We are also not there yet. I just want to make sure that you all understand. We are getting to that journey, right? So then the next one is on the data lake and warehouse. I think this is also, I'm sure you pretty know about what is the difference between data warehouse and data lake. I don't want to get into that detail, but the key concept is how do you achieve best of both worlds? That means you still do the data warehouse stuff and also you ensure that all the data lake capabilities are available. For example, you have a open architecture with key capabilities like ACID and schema evolution, and you are able to do the time travel. So all these things are modern data lakehouse architecture. So the data warehouse, which is a traditional data warehouse architecture where you do the analytics. So how do you combine these two, right? So that's another critical point. And you have a lot of technology options available. I'm pretty sure that you might have already come across Delta Lake from Databricks. That's one of the layers that you can achieve this. And then you have a Apache Hudi, Iceberg and all those things. right? So these are the technology options that you can consider for achieving this. Okay, so then this is another key approach. I think you need to closely understand. This is what I was talking about. People, when some people we say data mesh, they say no, I don't want a data mesh because it's a decentralized, it's going to cause a lot of confusion and all those things. But there are various approaches. How do you do the data mesh? So one of the approaches governed mesh and the harmonized mesh and then the highly federated mesh. So you choose what is the kind of centralization required. If you look at this arrow, this side it's more control, it's a centralized, right? That side it's completely distributed and agile, right? How do you balance between these two? That's what the harmonized mesh is all about, right? So let me walk you through quickly. It's a very detailed one, but I don't want to bore you. Basically, if you look at that, domain B is accessing a data from a data domain, and it always go via the central data management hub, if you look at it, right? And whatever is published by domain C is accessed by domain B, and it is always through the central data management hub. This is a completely governed one. So if you look at the key statement, data domains distribute data via central management hub only and governed by central management hub. That means nobody can access data directly to another domain data. It's always go via central data management hub, right? So that's a governed mesh. Then the next approach is about the harmonized mesh, right? The key points about this pros and cons, you will have very tighter governance and you are able to govern completely. That's the advantage with the governed mesh. But there are challenges in terms of not able to provide complete federated model and complete distributed model. That's the challenge with the governed mesh. So the harmonized mesh is data directly but governed by central management. If you look at this, domain B is accessing data product from domain C. Are you able to see that? So it is not going via our central management hub. But you see there is a dotted line, and that dotted line is about the governance is still happening. That means I publish my metadata to a central data catalog and I do a data lineage. I do everything, the security, privacy and all those things within the governance and management area. But I still allow domains to talk to each other. So this is a harmonized mesh, right? So this is one of the advantages. You follow both data fabric and mesh kind of architecture, right? You still allow distributed, but you still control centrally, right? And it has a pros and cons because you are allowing the domains to talk to each other and the data management is happening through the central. Sometimes people skip that. So you need to make sure that you are not allowing anybody to skip the data management. So your controls should be such a way that the platform need to ensure that nobody is talking to each other without going through the central data management hub, right? So that's the important aspects that we need to make sure on this, right? Then the last one is on the highly federated mesh. If you see this, the domains are talking to each other, correct? They are accessing the data product. But then the central part is completely optional. So that means you don't need to do a data management. This is also happening, and this is also one of the data mesh approach, right? So you pick and choose what kind of approach is suitable for your organization, and based on that you can proceed on the implementation of your modern data architecture, and it's going to be a self-sustainable model, and the platform is able to achieve what is the business objective that you wanted to achieve as a data-driven organization, correct? And then the final slide is all about that it is not about technology, right? This whole architecture and self-service data platform, all these things are not technology. It is a business. It's a business has to take a, that's why the key statement here, it's not just change of technology, it's a multiple part of business involved and requires a shift in mindset. So it requires a mindset shift, right? It's not a very straightforward thing. And it's a longer term investment. It's not just one day, I just do the data mesh and then I'm done, right? So it's a longer term investment. And need to establish a structure and ways of working, and change generates friction. So definitely you will have a lot of friction on this. So how do you overcome that? And the hybrid technology landscape. This is the other important point that I wanted to highlight, because today the technology whichever is available, it's not fully supporting the hybrid strategy, right? So you take Databricks. Databricks is available only in cloud, and they have an open source Delta Lake. But the open source Delta Lake is not having the capabilities of your cloud Databricks, because cloud Databricks, they have a Unity catalog, which is serving the catalog purpose and the data security purpose, which is not there in the open source. And they have a Photon engine in cloud. That's specialized proprietary engine, which is speeding up the thing for Databricks, which is still there in the cloud, which is not there in the open source version. I think there are certain challenges. These are the key two differences between the cloud Databricks and the on-prem or open source Databricks. So that's where the challenge is, what kind of technology you choose to support this modern architecture. And it has to be hybrid, right? Because whether we like it or not, all our data cannot be moved to cloud. I think this is how the cloud partners are trying to sell us. But based on the compliance and based on the regulatory, not all data cannot be moved to cloud, and you have a data sovereignty requirements and so many requirements. So the hybrid is important approach, and my recommendation is harmonized mesh, right? So you stay in between, right? You don't fully give a control to somebody else, and the business domains are going to talk to each other. You have a balanced approach and go with a harmonized kind of a mesh, so that you still allow the domains to talk to each other, but you can have a centralized mesh, or you can choose a governed mesh. So I think between these two you can take one of the option. Yeah. So that's all from my side. Any question? Hope this is informative. So any questions from anyone?
Anybody for a quick question? We have time for a quick question as well. Let's give Mr. Bala a big warm round of applause, everybody.